The other day, I fell down one of those YouTube rabbit holes watching a celebrity home tour. The house was this vast, cavernous space of white walls, polished concrete floors, and furniture that looked more like abstract sculpture than anything you'd actually want to sit on. The owner proudly pointed out how every surface was unblemished, how there was no clutter. And as they spoke, I realized the room wasn't just clean. It felt sterile, almost hostile to the very idea of leaving behind a coffee ring or a stray book. Then my mind flashed to a completely different image. Professor Higgins' study from My Fair Lady, that magnificent warm chaos. Towering walls of books with spines cracked and pages dog-eared. A desk buried under manuscripts, strange scientific gadgets, and maps of places you've never heard of. It's a room that doesn't just look lived in, it looks thought in. And comparing those two spaces, you can't help but wonder, what happened between that study and this studio? When did our ideal home stop being a sanctuary for the mind and become a minimalist stage for the camera? This is more than just a change in taste. It's a story about who we are and what we've decided is worth showing off. Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take a closer look at, well, big questions shaping our world. Today we're diving into a really fascinating evolution, the very nature of our homes. We'll explore how this pervasive trend of minimalist home design, the kind often optimized for visual consumption and social media, how that impacts our psychological well-being, our cognitive functions, maybe even our creativity. We'll also try and uncover the socioeconomic factors driving this shift. And perhaps most importantly, discover some innovative architectural and interior design philosophies that are trying to reintegrate dedicated spaces for deep thought and personal contemplation back into modern living. It's really a journey into how our physical spaces shape our inner lives and what that means for you.
It's absolutely true. The modern home has undergone a truly significant transformation. It's shifted from what was once, a private personal haven to, well, in many cases, a public statement, or even a kind of performance space. What's really compelling for us today, I think, is to understand not just the aesthetic change, like why homes look the way they do now, but the underlying intentions behind this shift. Yeah. Maybe more importantly, the genuine consequences it has for you, the individual actually, living within these spaces. So we're going to unpack why this profound shift happened, and then we'll look at what some cutting-edge design is doing to help us perhaps reclaim our homes as places of true intellectual and emotional nourishment, not just places for display.
Okay, so let's really dig into this idea of how our homes have transformed. Because we've all done it, right? Scrolled through endless feeds of these pristine, perfectly curated homes. You know the ones I mean. White walls, maybe a single plant perfectly placed, furniture that looks like it genuinely belongs in an art gallery. On the surface, they look, well, calming, almost meditative. But I guess I have to wonder, is all this visual cleanliness actually having a genuinely positive effect on our cognitive functions? Our creativity, our overall mental well-being? Does a decluttered space truly lead to a decluttered mind, or is it maybe a bit more complicated than that simple equation?
That's absolutely the core question, isn't it? The one we really need to wrestle with. Because the foundational premise of so much of this design, especially the popularized lifestyle version of minimalism, it's deeply rooted in this belief that, a cluttered physical space inevitably translates into a chaotic, unfocused mind. A lot of people who actively practice minimalism, they genuinely believe that a radical decluttering process, what they often call a purge, can literally bring focus back into their lives. The idea is basically by having fewer physical possessions, you have fewer things to manage, fewer things to worry about, maybe fewer decisions to make, which in turn saves mental energy. Ultimately, it's supposed to lead to a clear understanding of your true priorities, right? Allowing you to focus on what truly matters. Some advocates even describe it as gaining your freedom back. It sounds incredibly appealing, doesn't it? This notion that by simply removing physical items, you can achieve this profound mental clarity and a sense of liberation.
It absolutely does sound appealing. I mean, who wouldn't want more mental clarity and freedom? But that makes me wonder, can a purely aesthetic or, say, materially focused form of minimalism actually deliver on that promise, that deep, lasting mental clarity? Or is there a risk it becomes more of a superficial fix for deeper issues? Almost like, just painting over rust instead of truly fixing the pipe that's leaking underneath.
That's a brilliant analogy, really. And it highlights what's truly fascinating here. Minimalism, which if you look at its philosophical roots, it began as a rejection of accumulation, of excess. Well, it has itself been thoroughly commodified. It often subtly, and sometimes not so subtly, encourages you to replace your old possessions with new, more minimalist items. Think about the pervasive trend of mid-century boho furniture you see in practically every influencer's home. It's a specific aesthetic, right? and you're still buying new things to achieve it. Or consider those minimalist subscription boxes that arrive on your doorstep, sending you seemingly essential but still new things. Even technology gets this treatment. We've seen devices like the Unihertz Jelly Pro, for listeners maybe not familiar. This is one of those ultra-compact, very basic smartphones, almost like a burner phone. It's designed specifically to strip away most functionality to actively discourage constant screen time. Now, that sounds great for reducing digital noise and potential anxiety.
Yeah, that part sounds good.
But it comes with a clear trade-off. You lose access to advanced apps, a decent camera, even basic conveniences you've probably come to expect from a modern phone. So while it cuts down on distraction, it also significantly diminishes practical utility.
So it really is like a new form of consumerism, isn't it?
Yep.
But it's cleverly disguised with this minimalist label. And I suppose that shiny, spare aesthetic might even mask a pretty complex, maybe resource-intensive infrastructure behind the scenes, like that sense of less is more in our physical space might actually depend on a whole lot of more happening elsewhere.
Exactly. Precisely. The simple appearance of many of these products, particularly our digital devices, it relies on a vast, often hidden, and undeniably resource-intensive infrastructure. We're talking about the massive server farms that store our data, the extensive mining operations that extract the rare earth minerals needed for our chips, and the complex supply chains that bring these simple items to us. As some critics have pointed out, the danger is that this veneer of minimalism, this outward display of owning less or choosing aesthetically clean items, can become simply, quote, another class-dependent way of feeling better about yourself by buying a product. It morphs into a subtle status symbol, an aspiration, rather than, a genuine path to mental peace or fundamental shift away from rampant consumerism. It's about appearing to be thoughtful, perhaps, rather than genuinely being thoughtful about consumption.
That's a truly sharp and, frankly, unsettling insight. It really brings home this challenge of thoughtful observation in what's often described as our brightly lit and busy world. It feels like our senses are just constantly overloaded by this more is more ethos of modernity. More information, more stimulation, more demands on our attention all the time. If our phones, which are, designed to enhance connectivity and access to knowledge, often end up feeling like habit-forming wellsprings of anxiety and depression, then something is clearly amiss, right? Even with a stripped-down phone, as you mentioned, there are those practical trade-offs where essential functionality just takes a hit. So is the problem simply the amount of stuff we have, or is it something deeper, something about our relationship with our environment and the information within it?
That's precisely the deeper question, I think. It raises the issue of whether minimalism, when it's approached solely as an individual pursuit of austerity, simply reducing your personal possessions can truly address the more profound collective challenges we face, or even deeply rooted emotional distress. You might meticulously clean and declutter your bedroom, achieving a perfectly serene physical space. But as one writer poignantly put it, the world stays bad. The pervasive issues of climate change, social inequality, or just the relentless pace of modern life, they don't magically disappear just because your sock drawer is perfectly organized. The promise of a truly clear mind might require much more than just a decluttered shelf or a sparse living room. It invites us to consider if maybe we're focusing on the symptom rather than the systemic causes of our mental clutter.
And here's where it gets particularly fascinating, especially when we look at a specific demographic like millennials. We know this generation is, profoundly interested in well-being, mindfulness, and purpose. Research shows that millennials often define minimalism not just as physical decluttering, but as this broader desire to avoid unnecessary ideas, objects, and information. Their aim seems to be focusing on truly enjoying what they already have and prioritizing mindfulness. It's clearly a mindset that seeks meaning beyond just material possessions, often emphasizing human connection and experiences over accumulating things. This aligns perfectly with many mental well-being goals, you'd think.
You're absolutely right. And when surveyed, a significant portion of millennials explicitly stated very strong reasons for adopting or even just considering minimalism. A notable 56.4% said they wanted to reduce stress, which is huge. And an even higher 66.7% aimed to improve mental well-being. These are incredibly powerful stated motivations. For a large segment of this generation, there's a clear, intentional link in their minds between embracing a minimalist lifestyle and achieving tangible psychological benefits. They see it as a pathway to a calmer, maybe more fulfilling life.
Okay, so given those incredibly strong stated motivations that people believe minimalism will make them happier and less stressed, you'd naturally expect to see a clear positive correlation, wouldn't you? You'd think that the more minimalist someone reports being, the better their psychological well-being would measure. But what did the studies actually find when they tried to, quantify this?
Well, this is the fascinating part. And it's where we uncover a potential contradiction that truly challenges our assumptions. A recent quantitative study, despite these very strong stated motivations from millennials, found no statistically significant correlation between the self-reported level of minimalism and the level of psychological well-being in their specific sample. Now, just think about that for a moment. People are actively pursuing this lifestyle because they believe it will reduce stress and improve their mental health. Yet, well, in this particular measurable outcome, the data just didn't show that direct link.
Wow. Okay. That's a huge disconnect, isn't it? Between the intention and the measurable reality. It really pushes us to think critically about whether simply having a sparse home or even just a commitment to less physical stuff automatically equals a peaceful mind. Perhaps it's not just about what you remove, but what you actively cultivate in your life, or how you truly engage with your remaining possessions in your overall existence. Is it possible that the type of minimalism matters, or that well-being is just a much more multifaceted concept than simply decluttering?
You've hit on the crux of it, I think. This discrepancy is truly fascinating, and it suggests that while the intention to improve well-being through minimalism is undoubtedly strong and probably quite noble, the actual measurable outcome might be far more complex than a simple cause and effect relationship. It could be due to the specific ways minimalism and well-being were defined and measured in that particular study. I mean, perhaps the metrics didn't capture the full spectrum of psychological benefits or the nuances of minimalist practice. Or it could genuinely imply that true, deep psychological benefits require more than just superficial aesthetic changes or a mere reduction in physical possessions. Perhaps it requires a more fundamental shift in values, maybe a deeper engagement with self-reflection, or a more profound reevaluation of one's priorities and emotional landscape, rather than simply tidying up your physical environment. It means we need to look beyond those pristine, Instagram-perfect images and dig deeper into what a truly fulfilling and mentally nourishing home environment actually looks like, and importantly, how it's achieved.
That statistical finding is genuinely thought-provoking. It really highlights that what we think minimalism does for us might be quite different from the deeper reality. It's clearly not just about what looks good on camera for social media. So if it's not simply aesthetics, what are the larger socioeconomic currents, the profound shifts in our consumer values that are actually pushing us toward these minimalist, often open concept homes? Sometimes it feels at the expense of dedicated spaces for deep thought, quiet contemplation, or even just genuine privacy. What are the underlying, maybe systemic forces at play here?
You've articulated the perfect question there. It's absolutely true. The visual trends we observe in home design are often just symptoms of much deeper, more pervasive societal shifts. Minimalism, particularly as a popular mode of consumption, has gained significant traction as a direct response to globalized socioeconomic processes that have led to an almost relentless intensification of production and consumption. We live in an era where excess is not just common, but often the default, right? And so minimalism can be viewed as a profound, conscious pushback against that overwhelming tide.
And when you say intensified production and consumption, you mean the sheer volume of things we produce, consume, and then often very quickly just discard. I've heard some truly startling statistics about the waste we generate from that cycle.
Exactly. The scale of waste is, well, staggering. Consider just, for example, the textile industry alone. An average American throws away approximately 37 kilograms, that's over 80 pounds of clothes annually. This contributes to a colossal $500 billion loss each year globally, not to mention a horrifying 1.2 billion tons of greenhouse gas emissions just from the textile industry. To put that into perspective, that's more than all international air travel and maritime shipping combined. It highlights a massive environmental and economic problem. So against this backdrop, minimalism emerges as a kind of a voluntary resistance to this relentless, often mindless accumulation. It's a conscious effort to shift focus from merely acquiring material goods to cultivating mindfulness, fostering genuine human connections, and developing a much greater awareness of what our true needs are versus our fleeting wants.
And the recent global events, like the pandemic, they certainly must have played a role in accelerating this introspection, didn't they? When people were confined to their homes with fewer distractions and maybe more time to simply be in their spaces, they probably had a lot more opportunity to look around and genuinely question all the stuff they had accumulated over the years.
Oh, it absolutely did. The COVID-19 pandemic, with its unprecedented lockdowns, widespread unemployment, and a significant decrease in disposable income for many, it truly spurred people to pause and critically question their consumption patterns. Being confined to their homes for extended periods forced a kind of, forced introspection. It led many to reflect deeply on the concept of unnecessary possessions. This global moment of pause certainly accelerated the trend of questioning material accumulation and gave rise to a renewed appreciation for essential items and experiences.
That introspection, then, must connect directly to millennials, who, as we said, are often characterized as incredibly conscious consumers. Are they really a driving force behind this ethical consumption movement? And how does that specifically link to the rise of minimalist tendencies?
Without a doubt, millennials represent a profoundly significant market segment, acting as a powerful driving force in current consumer trends. They are frequently defined as ethical and socially oriented consumers, demonstrating a clear willingness to support companies that actively contribute to addressing pressing social and environmental issues. This isn't merely a niche interest for them, it's becoming a mainstream imperative. A striking 73% of global millennials, for instance, are willing to pay a premium for sustainable goods. This purchasing behavior is largely driven by their heightened awareness of climate change and a deeply felt desire to make a positive environmental impact through their choices.
That's a truly powerful statistic. It suggests that for many, it's not just about personal gain or aesthetic preference, but a broader sense of environmental and social responsibility.
Yeah.
So is it fair to say that for a significant number of millennials, embracing minimalism is primarily an environmental statement as much as, say, a personal one?
Absolutely. The data really supports that. Reducing impact on the environment was actually the single top reason cited by millennials for adopting or even considering minimalism. 72.7% of respondents identified it as their primary motivation. That surpassed even personal stress reduction or financial reasons. So while ethical consumption is, strictly speaking, a distinct concept from minimalism, it very clearly manifests as a form of minimalism through tangible practices. This includes things like refusing unnecessary items, consciously voting with the dollar by choosing eco-friendly products, and meticulously practicing proper waste disposal and recycling. For many, minimalism becomes a practical, everyday choice to consume less or consume better, driven by this profound sense of ecological responsibility.
That's incredibly insightful. It shows how deeply intertwined these concepts can be. But if they're so committed to these values, why do many millennials, as you sort of hinted at earlier, hesitate to call themselves minimalists? Directly, you said they often prefer a different label. What's the nuance there? What's going on?
Yeah, it's a fascinating nuance, and it really speaks to the public perception of the term minimalism. When asked directly in one study, the majority of millennials actually avoided labeling themselves minimalists. Instead, they overwhelmingly preferred the term rational consumers. Now, this isn't just a semantic quirk, I don't think. It might be because they associate the term minimalism with a really extreme, almost ascetic form of living. You know, the kind of lifestyle where you own only one pair of jeans, or famously, where you fit all your worldly possessions into a single backpack. They might embrace the behaviors of minimalism, like low reflective consumption, and they certainly understand the underlying concepts, but they may not want to identify with what they perceive as its most radical or maybe self-denying expressions. It suggests their approach is more about being pragmatic and sensible with their consumption, rather than adopting a rigid ideological label. They want to live wisely, maybe not necessarily in an empty room with just a single chair.
That makes perfect sense, yeah. It's about a practical approach to living and consuming, rather than maybe adhering to an extreme ideology. But then there's this other intriguing group you mentioned, inconspicuous minimalists. How do they fit into this picture? Because that sounds like it might directly contradict the core idea of reducing consumption for environmental or psychological reasons.
It does indeed challenge the pure traditional definition of minimalism, and it offers a really interesting glimpse into how consumption patterns evolve and fragment. Inconspicuous minimalists are individuals who choose products characterized by subtle designs and muted colors, often from exceptionally high-quality luxury brands that are not widely known to the general masses. Think of a discreet, impeccably tailored cashmere sweater from, say, Loro Piana, or a timeless leather bag from Hermes, items that speak volumes about quality and refined taste without overt branding or flashy logos. These consumers typically belong to higher social classes, are often well-educated, and are influenced by their social circles to communicate their status in a very discreet, almost coded manner. Their choices are crucially driven by wants that are deeply related to social status and image, rather than a genuine rejection of consumerism or a desire for austerity. It's about curated exclusivity and discerning taste as a form of subtle social signaling, not necessarily about owning less in the traditional sense of decluttering for simplicity. So it's a form of aesthetic minimalism, sure, but with a distinctly different underlying motivation, one of quiet status and refined taste rather than anti-consumption.
That's a perfect example of how the lines get blurred, isn't it? Between genuine minimalism and maybe just a new form of aspirational consumption. And on the flip side of that curated exclusivity, we have the fast furniture phenomenon. Social media platforms like Instagram and Pinterest have really turned our home interiors into a kind of digital flex, a public stage. People pose home design queries to their followers. Master renovation plans become content for their feeds. This constant visual consumption and desire for immediate validation must be driving something profoundly new in the way we approach our homes.
Oh, it absolutely has. This culture of instant visual gratification and social sharing has given birth to what's now commonly called the dupe phenomenon. These are affordable versions of luxury or viral it items that quickly blow up online. Think of popular items like the Murano mushroom lamp or the Samsung Frame TV. These are often copied and made readily available from budget retailers almost instantly. Now, on the surface, this democratizes access to nice-looking furniture, which sounds positive, right? More people can achieve a stylish look without breaking the bank. However, this accessibility also fosters a powerful desire for immediacy within design and cultivates a quick-fix attitude. People see a trend, they want it now, and they can acquire a cheaper version almost instantly.
So we're essentially seeing the fast fashion equivalent happening in interiors now, where people feel this pressure to constantly update their homes with trendy, affordable pieces. But unlike, say, a cheap shirt or piece of furniture, even if it's a dupe, is usually a more substantial investment in something you're expected to live with for longer. What are the long-term implications of this quick-fix mentality on our homes and maybe our sense of personal style?
That's precisely where the problem lies, I think. This quick fix approach is problematic because, unlike fashion, developing a truly authentic, meaningful, and deeply personal home style often takes years or even decades of reflection, careful cultivation, and thoughtful sourcing. It's a process of layering, collecting pieces that tell a story, allowing your space to evolve with you. The relentless pressure for quick transformations, fueled by the endless scroll of social media, can lead to this fast fashion equivalent in interiors. Quality is often compromised for immediate aesthetic appeal. You end up with homes that look instantly current but maybe lack depth, character, and durability. An authentic home, much like developing personal style, thrives on the juxtaposition of ideas, sourcing, and journeys. It's about collecting pieces that hold meaning, that come from different eras or travels, that create a unique narrative. It's not about total cohesion from a single brand or a single trending look. This instant gratification trend often overlooks the deeper, more personal, and enduring connection we should ideally have with our living spaces. It can lead to environments that might be visually appealing but ultimately feel transient and, well, lacking soul.
Right. It's clear that while the aesthetic of modern minimalism might seem appealing on the surface, the motivations and impacts are far more complex and often, well, contradictory. Our homes, as we've explored, have increasingly become these performance stages, right? Designed for the camera, for social media, or for projecting a particular aspirational image. But if that's the case, we've inadvertently designed out the very elements that nurture our inner lives. How do we intentionally design them back into places that truly support our minds, our creativity, or intellectual well-being? How do we go from that sterile studio back to a truly thought-in study or sanctuary? This is where it gets really interesting, I think, because it suggests a new path forward for home design.
Exactly. And the growing critique of how contemporary home design has impacted our intellectual identity and overall well-being has indeed spurred a wave of truly innovative architectural and interior design philosophies. These emerging movements are explicitly focused on fostering deeper engagement, promoting mental clarity, and supporting holistic well-being within our living spaces. It's about consciously shaping our environments not just for aesthetics, but to genuinely support and enhance our inner lives.
And one of the most prominent and frankly exciting of these movements is biophilic design, isn't it? It sounds like it's fundamentally about reconnecting with nature, but within our built environments. What's the core, the underlying philosophy driving this approach?
You're spot on. At its core, biophilic design is rooted in the recognition of an inherent, deep-seated human need to connect with nature. This fundamental connection, termed biophilia, which literally translates to love of life or love of living systems, is considered to have a genetic basis. It suggests it's hardwired into us. It's not simply about decorating with a few potted plants, though that can be part of it. It's about systematically creating therapeutic indoor environments that actively sustain our engagement with natural processes and elements in our daily lives. The benefits of this sustained connection are remarkably extensive and, importantly, scientifically supported. It's been shown to promote deep relaxation, significantly relieve stress, lower blood pressure and heart rate, decrease chronic pain, improve cognitive functioning and focus, increase positive emotions, and even reduce fatigue, aggression, and feelings of sadness. It really aims to transform a space from merely functional to actively healing.
So it's a truly holistic approach to wellness through intentional design, almost turning our homes into personal healing environments. That's a really powerful idea. How do designers actually implement these principles? What are the key categories or strategies they follow to bring nature into our built spaces in such a profound way?
Well, biophilic design principles are generally organized into 3 key categories, which provides a pretty comprehensive framework for designers. The first is nature in the space. This involves creating direct, tangible, and often visual connections to nature within the built environment itself. Think beyond just a single potted plant in the corner. This includes incorporating living indoor vegetation like large plants, maybe green walls, or regularly integrating fresh flowers, all of which are scientifically proven to enhance relaxation, reduce stress, and promote positive emotions. But it also means designing spaces with deliberate, clear vistas to natural surroundings, perhaps a large window framing a view of shade trees, a garden, or even a distant natural landscape. The goal is to foster a continuous, effortless connection to the outdoors, making nature an intrinsic part of your daily view.
That makes incredible sense. Bringing the outside in and making it an integral part of your daily experience rather than just an afterthought. Okay, what's the second principle then? How does that deepen the connection?
The second principle is nature of the space. This goes beyond those direct views and instead focuses on mimicking the processes, the rhythms, and the spatial compositions found in nature itself. A prime example is utilizing dynamic lighting systems that intelligently emulate natural circadian rhythms. This means having bright blue wavelength light in the morning hours, which helps suppress melatonin and promotes alertness and cognitive function, then gradually transitioning to warmer, yellow-hued light in the evening to promote melatonin production and support better sleep hygiene. It aligns your indoor light with your body's natural clock. Another powerful aspect is creating specific refuge spaces, like a cozy, enclosed reading nook tucked away in a corner or a secluded meditation spot. These spaces provide a profound sense of safety, comfort, and calm, mirroring the sheltered environments we instinctively seek in nature. Even incorporating architectural elements that feature symmetry and repeating patterns often found in the natural world, like the branching of trees or the patterns in a seashell, falls under this category. They resonate with our innate sense of natural order and harmony.
That's incredibly clever, replicating the rhythms and the comforting structures of nature itself, not just its visible elements. It's about how the space feels and how it subtly influences your biology, your psychology. And then the third principle, natural analogs. What does that encompass?
Natural analogs involves indirect representations of nature. This is where designers use textures, geometries, materials, colors, shapes, and patterns that evoke natural forms, even if they aren't direct living elements. For instance, using natural woods, not just for their aesthetic appeal, but because studies show that the simple act of touching wood can actually increase relaxation and reduce stress. Incorporating biomorphic shapes, forms that resemble living organisms, like a winding pathway design in flooring or a leaf-shaped chair. Or fractal patterns, which are these repeating patterns found throughout nature, like in the branching of a fern or the lines on a snowflake. These can create a subconscious sense of harmony and naturalness. Even integrating subtle water features, like a small indoor fountain, or using soundscapes that evoke natural sounds, birdsong, gentle rain, rustling leaves, can create that subtle, indirect connection to the outdoors. It brings the essence of nature indoors, even without direct views or living plants. It's about designing environments that resonate with our innate affinity for the natural world on a deeper sensory level.
It sounds like an incredibly comprehensive and multi-layered approach. Really thoughtful. So moving from these core principles, how are these biophilic ideas actually being translated into concrete features? Things that can be integrated into our homes to actively support not just general well-being, but specific aspects of intellectual pursuit and even provide therapeutic benefits.
Yeah, that's where it gets really practical and exciting. One major area is the strategic use of light as therapy. Beyond just mimicking natural light cycles, which we discussed, advanced smart LED lighting systems are now capable of providing truly targeted therapeutic benefits. Imagine programmable, bright, broad-spectrum light in the morning, which has been shown in clinical settings to actively reduce pain, alleviate symptoms of depression, and combat chronic fatigue. Even more remarkably, specific wavelengths of light are being used therapeutically. For example, specialized green LED light has been clinically shown to significantly decrease headache days in migraine patients. And it's also shown promise in reducing chronic pain in fibromyalgia sufferers. You can find increasingly accessible products on the market today, specialized bulbs marketed as circadian rhythm bulbs, or migraine relief LED light, or full spectrum sunlight like bulbs. This makes this cutting-edge technology something you can actually integrate into your own home to create a truly responsive and potentially healing environment.
That's genuinely remarkable, transforming something as commonplace as a light bulb into a sophisticated therapeutic tool. It opens up a whole new way of thinking about our basic home fixtures, doesn't it? What about other technologies we already have in our homes, beyond just lighting? Can they also be repurposed for wellness in these new intentional designs?
Absolutely. We're seeing some really exciting developments in the integration of technology for wellness, transforming passive devices into active therapeutic tools. Take smart TVs, for example, like the Samsung Frame Smart TV, which is designed to look like a piece of art when it's not in use. These devices can go beyond just being entertainment screens. They can serve as sophisticated delivery systems for therapies by displaying nature-inspired art and calming visualizations, or by providing high-quality soundscapes for music therapy or guided meditation. Research has consistently shown that music therapy, for instance, can be really effective in reducing chronic pain and alleviating depressive symptoms. This represents a significant shift in how we view common household items. They're no longer just consumption devices, but can be active participants in promoting our mental and physical health. It's about leveraging the tech we already have to enhance our well-being in subtle yet profound ways.
And beyond integrating advanced technology, what about simply designing our homes to naturally encourage healthy habits? Everyday self-care practices. How can our physical layout make it easier to live a more mindful, maybe more physically active life?
That's a crucial aspect, I think. Moving beyond purely aesthetic or technological solutions to deeply integrated lifestyle support. Homes can be intentionally designed to foster physical activities in a seamless way. This could mean dedicating space for exercise equipment that faces a stimulating natural landscape through a large window, making your workout feel less like a chore and more like a connection to the outdoors. Or simply designing a living area with ample, clear floor space, maybe with multiple yoga mats readily available and visible, to encourage stretching, yoga, or even social support if you want to practice with a companion. Beyond movement, comfortable lounge chairs can be strategically placed in quiet, well-lit nooks specifically to invite meditation, deep relaxation, and stress reduction. Even simple elements like incorporating aromatherapy diffusers using essential oils like lavender for relaxation or peppermint for mental clarity and headache reduction can be seamlessly woven into the home's design. It's about making the healthy, mindful choice the easy, natural choice within your own four walls, creating an environment that passively encourages well-being.
This definitely sounds like a much more intentional and holistic approach than the sterile or performance stage minimalism we talked about earlier. But does this new philosophy mean we have to fill our homes with things again to make them feel lived in or thought in? Or can minimalism still play a powerful role, but maybe with a fundamentally different purpose driving it?
That's an excellent point to raise. The concept of a truly contemplative or intellectually nurturing space doesn't necessarily mean a maximally ornate or cluttered one, not at all. In fact, minimalism can be incredibly powerful when it's imbued with purpose. Consider Theaster Gates's Serpentine Pavilion, which was titled Black Chapel. This structure, a temporary architectural installation in London, is a fantastic example of a fairly minimal interior that was profoundly and intentionally designed as a site for deep contemplation and reflection. It's essentially a cylindrical structure with simple wraparound benches inside and a large oculus, a circular opening in the roof. This allows natural daylight to filter in and cast these moving patterns of light and shadow throughout the day. This simple yet incredibly powerful design demonstrates how a minimalist approach, when meticulously imbued with a clear purpose and thoughtful consideration for human experience, can actually enhance introspection, facilitate deep engagement with one's thoughts, and foster a sense of the sacred or the profound. This contrasts so sharply with the sterile, almost hostile minimalist spaces we discussed earlier, which often feel empty despite their expensive materials or perfect curation. The key difference lies entirely in the intention behind the design, not just the absence of clutter. It's truly minimalism with purpose.
So we're really talking about a paradigm shift here, where our homes actively support our well-being and our intellectual lives rather than just serving as passive backdrops for existence or, stages for display. This idea of healthy dwelling sounds like a future where our environments are deeply integrated with our personal growth and health. What does that future look like then, in its most advanced forms? Where could this lead?
The prospects are genuinely exciting, and they signal a profound shift in how we conceive of our living spaces. There's a growing movement towards, well, unprecedented collaborations between integrated healthcare systems and architectural and interior design firms. The ambitious goal is to create truly innovative and, in some cases, even disease-specific therapeutic residential environments. Imagine homes designed with specific light spectrums to alleviate chronic pain, or optimized acoustic environments to support those with sensory processing disorders, or layouts that inherently encourage movement and physical activity to help manage conditions like diabetes. This is a far cry from just generic wellness add-ons or features. The Biophilic design matrix has even been proposed as a formalized, systematic tool to help designers implement these natural attributes more effectively, moving it from purely an intuitive art towards a more structured science. This reflects a significant societal shift towards recognizing the home not just as shelter, but as a crucial active component of our overall health and well-being. It's becoming an integral part of our personal care regimen.
This deep dive has truly given us a powerful new lens, I think, through which to view our homes and the environments we inhabit every day. We started by noticing that stark shift, from Professor Higgins's wonderfully chaotic thought-in study, overflowing with intellectual life, to the sleek, sterile, visually perfect celebrity studio that seems optimized mostly for social media. We then unpacked the often surprising psychological impacts of this shift, exploring how modern minimalism, despite its initial promises of clarity and calm, can sometimes, maybe unintentionally, contribute to a feeling of emptiness, or simply redirect our innate consumer desires into new, perhaps more subtle forms. And we saw the powerful socioeconomic forces at play, everything from ethical consumption movements to the rapid rise of fast furniture trends that are subtly yet profoundly shaping our living spaces, often without us even realizing it.
And crucially, I think, we've discovered that the future of home design isn't necessarily about simply having more or less stuff. It's about a profound intentional purpose. It's about consciously creating spaces that are meticulously designed to nurture our mental well-being, to spark our creativity, and to support our intellectual lives through powerful principles like biophilic design. It's about transforming our homes from mere stages for display or just places to sleep and eat into genuine sanctuaries that deeply support our most fundamental needs for reflection, for intellectual engagement, and for authentic human connection.
Ultimately, the question really isn't whether your home meets some external aesthetic standard or if it looks perfectly Instagram-ready. The true measure, perhaps, is whether it genuinely serves you. Does it foster not just comfort, but profound contemplation and genuine calm?
So as you look around your own home, wherever you happen to be listening, maybe consider this. What elements could you intentionally bring in or perhaps thoughtfully simplify to cultivate a space that truly encourages deeper engagement, personal flourishing, and that genuine sense of being thought in?